you guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's your girl Jada here, back with another video, and today we're going to be talking about 90 Day Fiancé before the 90 days. They started releasing episodes for their newest season, and honestly these couples just give off so many red flags. Honestly, at this point I kind of want to raise my white flag and give up because this is looking crazy already, and they haven't even introduced all of the couples yet that are on this season. So can you imagine? I think they released maybe 3 episodes so far, but by the time as I release this it might be like 4, so we'll see. Now my first couple is going to be Tiger Lily and Adnan. So Tiger Lily is 41, she's from Texas, and Adnan is 23, he's from Jordan. So they're definitely one of the more delusional couples in my opinion. Obviously there is a lot of delusion on this season particularly, but with this one especially, you're gonna see what I mean, okay? Tiger Lily is a divorcee. She claimed the relationship got too controlling, but it did leave her a pretty wealthy woman. You see her in the opening scene of her on the episode buying this $20-something thousand watch. Now, even though she is wealthy, I don't know in terms of smart, yeah, making good decisions with your money even when you're wealthy is also a good decision in itself. But either way, she also has kids from the previous marriage. I think she has 2, but I can't quite remember, but I know she has more than 1. I don't think she has an actual job or friends that don't work for her. I think this was like a wedding shower or some type of bachelorette party, some type of party or celebration that her friends, quote unquote, had thrown for her. And I don't see any problem obviously with having people that work for you be kind of like your friends, but at the same time it's just like, interesting when it's only people that work for you. I don't think I saw not one person there that did not have her paying them for some service. So y'all can let me know if there was someone that I'm missing, but I think all of them were either like her hairstylist, makeup artist, nail tech. But I guess that kind of makes sense when you do have a controlling husband. They kind of cut you off from other people. It would make sense, you know, as to why people that were around her giving her services were the people that she ended up forming relationships or friendships with. She meets Adnan online. They've been talking for about 4 months now, and he's a model. But now they're going to be getting married without even meeting each other in person yet. And that is very worrisome. Now I could see if you guys were talking to each other for at least a year before you're just like, I think he's the one for me. I mean, I still have hesitations, but I'll be a little less likely to be as hesitant as I am now watching this, because 4 months is crazy. I think in general, you getting married to someone you've never met in person is crazy, but it's even crazier when you've only been talking to them for 4 months online. It just, I don't know, sis. I don't know. So Tiger Lily claims it's because he's Muslim, and in his culture you can't date, you just have to get married and then kind of get to know each other afterwards. But even though I do believe him, I've seen so many couples where one of the partners are Muslim and they do have that chance to get to know each other. I think that it's like ways around that. You taking that time to really get to know someone is important. Like, I think there's a way to respect his culture without having to compromise on your values and making sure that you're in a good place with that person before you just make that big of a step. So now she's going to be going to Jordan to get married to a man that not only has she only been talking to for 4 months, but is also half her age, Muslim, and who she's never met in person before. I just thought I would repeat those so that you hear where the red flags are just popping up in my head. So it honestly seems like a recipe for disaster. I find it pretty interesting that she left her previous marriage because he was controlling, but then she goes out and finds a Middle Eastern man. I mean, I'm not saying all of them are like that, but most of the ones that I've seen on this show act a certain way, and I think it's more so because of how they were raised, and that coincides with their culture and also religion. So they're bound to kind of be the same for the most part, unless they grew up in a different country. Typically, yeah, they're probably going to be very traditional and they're probably going to be a little controlling, but you guys can let me know if I'm incorrect. But like I said, I've seen examples and I'm not sure if they're capable of not being that way. Tiger Lily flies over to Jordan with her hair and makeup team, aka her friends, and one of them is a guy, and Adnan definitely has a problem with that already, but he tries not to say anything because she keeps telling him that this guy has been in her life for like 20 or so years, so he kind of treats this guy as a family member to Tiger Lily, but he's still kind of uncomfortable with it. But when they land, they get into the car. Adnan's driving. The friends start asking Adnan questions about what their future is going to look like. Do they want kids? Also, how many kids does Adnan want? Adnan's just like, yeah, I want like 5 kids because I come from a big family, you know? And I'm just like, 5 kids? Adnan, do you know how old your lady is? I'm not saying it's not possible, but would you really want to be raising kids, at least at her age? Like, would she want to be raising kids that late in the game? And 5 of them? I don't think he's taking into account the actual variables here. So I have to ask him straight up, like, are y'all gonna be adopting? Because that's the only way that's gonna make sense in my eyes. So they have their first ceremony, and Adnan already has issues with how Tiger Lily is dressed, which is a little tight in my opinion. It's a little revealing considering the conservative nature of Jordan. I probably would have worn something that was a little looser, a little more flowy. But I have to say that I find it really interesting that Tiger Lily couldn't find some time to simply research anything about the Muslim faith and traditions when it comes to marriage. Like, she was so lost in that first ceremony, and even after that she was still really lost. Like, the episodes following that, she was just so confused, like, what is going on? What does that mean? What am I saying? What are these vows? And she just was so calmly like, yeah, I don't really know much, but you know, yeah. I'm just like, how are you so calm? You don't really understand what's going on. Wouldn't you want to? Bizarre. Anyway, so the cultural differences get even more apparent when she has to have a hairstylist from a spa come to do her hair because she decided to give her glam team the day off for their official wedding ceremony the next day, which I find absolutely ridiculous. That's what you brought them for. And on top of that, it's like you're only there for 6 days, I think she said. So the hairstylist ends up being a guy, and Adnan refuses to leave her alone in that room. And he puts a 5-minute timer on this man. You could clearly see it was making him nervous. He was dropping stuff, things were flying. I think honestly Tiger Lily needs to take into account these little things and just ask herself, is this something that you're going to be okay with? I get it, you know, because it's a man. Typically in terms of a hairstylist or a makeup artist, it typically would be a woman, but every now and again you might get thrown some curveballs. What else you want her to do? That's who they sent. Also, he was telling Tiger Lily to pull her shorts down to try and cover up more of her legs, but that was kind of the entire length of the pants. It couldn't go down anymore. So I just thought it was overkill, honestly. They end up meeting the rest of the family at another event where they just eat, but it's customary to eat with your hands. And also as the bride, it's customary to be fed by other people or other family members specifically. And I'm not gonna lie, she did look disgusted. You could see the discomfort visibly on her face. But then one of Adnan's brothers asked them if they're going to be living in Jordan, and she's looking at Adnan like, you really didn't tell them anything about you coming to live with me in the States? Why are you not telling your family what the situation is? That's a little odd. So it just gave off strange vibes. Like, what is this guy trying to pull here? Why is he not telling his family this information? So that's kind of where we leave off with them. Let's move on to our next couple. We have Renee, who is 38. She's from New Mexico, and Chitty is 34 from Nigeria. So Renee is definitely a strange one, in my opinion. But she and Chitty find each other online. They start talking, and they've now been an item for the last 5 years. Renee has 2 kids, but she claims that she was never really in love in her previous relationships, and this is the first one where she actually feels loved. And good for her. She's also a chicken farmer who definitely has a pretty close relationship with her chicken friends. When I say close, I really do mean close. Okay, those are basically her family members, in her words. So we find out that Chitty is also blind because of an unfortunate set of accidents during his younger years, but Renee sees it as a plus because she's very self-conscious and thinks that because he can't see her, that there's less pressure on her to always look amazing. I get it. Obviously people can be a little self-conscious, but at the same time, I think that's kind of lazy though. That's a lazy way of looking at it. But I don't really think she's taking into account what responsibility she would have to take on to accommodate his disability. She's looking at it from a selfish standpoint, like, oh, I don't have to look great because he's blind. At the same time, it's like, he's blind. He can't see anything. So he's going to need your assistance doing a lot of stuff. So are you ready for that? Are you ready to accommodate him and all of his needs? That's the question that I think she's dodging. So she flies over to Nigeria. She meets up with Chitty, and the first thing this man does is say, "You're big." This woman already said she's self-conscious, and the first words out of this man's mouth after he hugs her is, "You're big." He tries to redeem himself by saying she's just the right size for him, but it was a little bit awkward after he said that. Now they go to Chitty's sister and brother-in-law's house, where he lives as well, because he needs someone to take care and watch over him. And as soon as Renee gets there, she's already on edge about meeting the sister, because she claims that years ago she got a premonition that she would have a contentious relationship with a significant other's sister. And that's very precise. I don't know if she just made that up on the fly. That's a little too specific for me to believe, but okay, Renee. When they get into the house, that's when Chitty tells her that they'll be sleeping in separate rooms. This comes shortly after she was like, "Yeah, I want to get in all the hugs and kisses. I want to get him used to physical touch." And he's just like, "Yeah, but maybe not right now, because you're going to be in a different room. Like when we go out and stuff, yeah, but you know, we're not going to be sleeping together." So yeah, that definitely is a blow, but they do wake up the next morning. He actually cooks her breakfast, which definitely impressed me, because you got to deal with sharp knives, fire, so it's just kind of like nerve-wracking the entire time. I'm glad that Renee sat to the side and just let him do what he said he can do. Now I think she fully believes in his capabilities. Now shortly after that, they head to the market with his sister, which definitely disappoints Renee because she wanted that time alone with him. But they get to the cage with the live chickens, and Renee starts getting really hostile when she finds out that Chitty's sister is about to buy one of the chickens and have them slaughtered for her to cook later. She completely loses her ever-living mind, even though she eats chicken literally all the time. Like, girl, where do you think that nicely packaged chicken in the supermarket comes from? Where does it come from? Okay, so it was kind of disrespectful for her to talk to someone that way whose house she's been staying in. It's just like, okay. Chitty and Renee sits off to the side for a bit for his sister to finish the shopping, and also for Renee to calm down. And that's when Chitty decides to tell her about his celibacy vow to God and how he wasn't going to be having sex until after marriage. So she wasn't really doing much calming down in this situation, as you would imagine. That would make me kind of upset, considering that we've been talking for 5 years now and you never mentioned this. She's already coming to Nigeria having hopes in her mind built up of you guys having this intimate relationship, lovey-dovey, touchy-touchy, and it's just not happening anymore because you're celibate. Yeah, I think he had ample time to tell her what was what, and that was just kind of a crappy thing to do, in my opinion. But let's move on to Lauren and Faith. So Lauren is 33, he's from Nevada, and Faith is 31 from the Philippines. So Lauren is definitely a strange one yet again. I think Renee and Lauren are probably one of the most strangest people on this show this season. So Lauren works at a drag show at a club, and he's also attracted specifically to trans women that have not had any bottom surgery. Lauren meets Faith, who refers to herself as a lady boy and identifies as a trans woman, but she doesn't take any hormones and doesn't intend on having any surgeries. However, when it comes to the hormones, I think she said it was because it was way too expensive. But Faith also works several jobs as a manager at a hotel, a magician, and a makeup artist. Lauren, on the other hand, doesn't make much money in the US to really support himself, so he's technically homeless and is also thinking about moving to the Philippines to live with Faith because he feels his money would go a longer way. However, Faith doesn't really know that that's the plan. When Lauren is with his friends, things get pretty awkward when they reveal that there are a lot of people wanting a chance with him, but he decided to choose Faith. They tell her that while she's on the phone with Lauren. It is very awkward because even Lauren's just like, why did you tell her that? But then shortly after that, we start to see how eager Lauren is to get into the sexual part of his and Faith's relationship, and also that he wants to eventually marry her, but wants to have an open relationship because he doesn't believe in monogamy. So I see a lot of issues with that statement because like, why get married then? When it comes to the whole open relationship thing, it's like, yeah, okay, I get it that you love more than one person, right? Awesome. But at the same time, I'm trying to figure out how that would make sense in terms of you guys getting married, but you don't believe in monogamy, but she does. Why get married then? Faith is the one that believes in not sharing you. I don't know how you're going to convince her to get married and also have an open relationship. I don't think that's gonna work, okay? So it's a little strange, especially the part where he says he's going to try and nudge her in the direction of having sex, and it definitely gives me creep vibes. Yeah, you'd want to have that physicality because physicalness with your partner is important at a certain point, but I think in the beginning, why is that your major focus? You know, it just calm down, you'll get there, you know, just build it up first. I just think the nudging part was a little strange. He also has his ex-girlfriend, who is a biological woman, pay for lingerie for Faith because he spent all of his savings on a cheap engagement ring and also tickets to go to the Philippines. Now, things are already getting awkward when Faith talks to her friends about wanting to move to the US to have more opportunities, but Lauren is planning, like I said, to move to the Philippines instead. As you can tell by that conversation Faith is having with her friends, that she doesn't really know that that's his plan. Now, when Lauren lands, Faith tells him that she would like to take things slow, but he keeps pushing that they only have 20 days. It just comes across as very desperate, but I don't think he sees it that way. I think ultimately it just seems like Lauren is more in love with the idea of the physical when it comes to Faith and not so much the emotional connection that they have, which is what Faith seems to be more concerned about, and I think that's why she was like, yeah, I want to take it slow. So we'll see how this goes. So let's move on to Brian and Ingrid. So Brian is 52, he's from Illinois, and Ingrid is 33 from Brazil. So Brian is a quadriplegic who is now in a wheelchair after being shot during a robbery and a carjacking years ago. Despite all the challenges of being in a wheelchair though, he does seem to have a pretty independent and active life. So good on him that he's not allowing his wheelchair to stop him from still doing things. So he's managed to travel the world playing and coaching wheelchair rugby, which definitely looks pretty intense with all the colliding. But while he was in Brazil for a time, he fell in love with the culture and of course the women and decided to learn the language, and he's now basically fluent in it. Now, he has had a few bouts with Brazilian women, being engaged to a few of them as well, so he does have a few back-to-back failed relationships under his belt already. But the thing is, I'm not quite sure if he learned anything from them. That's the big issue, considering he just rushes into another relationship with another Brazilian woman that also has a child. But he believes that she's different and could be the quote-unquote the one. But before he gets there, he reveals that there are some things he hasn't told her about the details behind the incident that landed him in a wheelchair. And it sounds like he might have been involved in some criminal activity, but we'll see. We'll let him take some time to explain when he gets to that point. Brian's daughter is already pretty worried about him going to Brazil to meet another woman after his string of bad relationships. He lands in Brazil, and Ingrid is now seeing what exactly being with a partner that is in a wheelchair actually entails, because I don't really think she fully understood. Even though she claims to be okay with it, I don't really think she knew exactly what she was signing up for. So Brian also shares with us that when it comes to sex, he has to take a pill to be prepared, and if he enjoys himself a little too much, he can actually have a brain aneurysm and could possibly die, which is absolutely crazy. But I gotta be honest, it does look as though from that first night, I don't know if Ingrid was just tired or what, but I think Brian might have showed her a little too much too early on. I can understand why he decided to do it ultimately, because, you know, he wants her to be prepared. But at the same time, I think it was a little too much too soon to have her exposed to, because now it looks as though she's uncomfortable. But that's what's been going on with Brian and Ingrid. Let's move on to our last couple. We have Via, who's 27 from Florida, and Sunny, who's 26 from South Africa. So there hasn't been much said about this couple, but they met on a dating app. Sunny moved from Bangladesh to South Africa to work in his brother's store, but he's pretty shy and hasn't had that much luck in love. So based on what Sunny has to say, he says that Via seems to be fun and sweet, but the only issue here seems to be some cultural differences and the fact that she's still friends with and often hangs out around her ex-boyfriend. And I would have a problem with that too, okay? I'm not gonna lie. If my boyfriend was out here still hanging around his ex-girlfriend, I would definitely be looking at him like, boy, you better get it together. Okay, so this has understandably led to a lot of arguments between the two, and now she wants to bring him over to South Africa with her to visit Sunny. She's claiming that it's because if they do get in an argument, she doesn't have anybody in her corner. There's nobody there besides Sunny that she knows. And I understand what she's saying, but at the same time, it's just kind of like, I mean, it would be the same situation if Sunny came to the US. He wouldn't have anyone. And I could also understand wanting the moral support, but why did it have to be your ex-boyfriend? You already know this man causes tension in y'all's relationship. Why would you bring him? Even her friends are looking at her like, you really couldn't find anybody else? Really? And they also ask her, when are you planning on telling Sunny that you're bringing your ex-boyfriend? And she just says that she'll tell him when they land and she sees Sunny in person. And I, again, think that's an absolute recipe for disaster. Like, the entire time I was watching this episode, I was like, girl, I don't say this often, but you are dumb. Dumb and naive if you think this is going to work out. With no hitches, no bumps. Yeah. But anyways, so there are 3 other couples that we haven't seen yet, but in the next couple of episodes, I'm sure they're going to get introduced. But those are the couples that I've seen so far, and it's already a hot mess. Honestly, like I said at the beginning, I want to wave my white flag because I want to give up because this just so many recipes for disaster here. I can't stress it enough. But y'all let me know your thoughts on these couples and their situations down below. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.